how's it going? Brilliant Diamond just recently released, and I worked like a madman to get some content out for it, outside of my usual red and blue runs, and today we're gonna give Piplup a try. Up front, I'm gonna have to give you guys a full disclaimer and be completely honest with you. You can look down, you can see how massive this video is already, but towards the end of the game, my save file gets corrupted, and I could not complete this run. I know it's an absolute bummer, trust me, I really do know, but I would really hate for someone to reach the end of this hour-long journey just to be let down without a proper conclusion, so just keep that in mind right now as you continue through this video. I'd also like to say that I haven't touched Diamond and Pearl outside of their initial release way back then, and even then I wasn't that familiar with them, so this video also contains a lot of my thoughts on the game, revisiting it. I went into it with a really casual mindset, and you'll slowly learn as we get deeper into the video. A run like this is very tough. I should have taken it more seriously. I should have gotten correct natures. I should have EV trained if I wanted this to go smooth, but this is a learning experience for everybody, especially me. Lastly, I'd like to say that if you enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe because I do solo runs weekly, and don't forget to help out that small channel algorithm by leaving a like or a comment. Those really help out. You can suggest future runs or just say anything, and if you're someone who never interacts and just don't know what to say, just scroll down and type in corrupted save down below so I get to relive the pain and suffering of never getting to finish this run. Thanks in advance. With that said, there's not much of a deep dive in this one because it's already so lengthy I just can't do it to you, but Piplup is pretty awful. That's my analysis. Now grab yourself a sody pop, sit back, and let's just get into it. The game starts off telling you an exploration team failed to find an elusive red Gyarados, so of course you and your rival head off to check it out. At the lake, you have your first run-in with Professor Rowan and Dawn, who essentially just do their best ludicrous impression and tell you to get out the way and leave. They leave behind a briefcase with your starter Pokemon, and an attack from some rabid Starlies force us to use one of them. And I don't reset, although I really should have for a decent nature if anything else. I pick up my little penguin boy, and let's briefly touch on natures. You see, I almost exclusively play Generation 1 for these kind of runs, and if you somehow don't know, natures are essentially a passive that will generally lower one stat and raise another. The problem here is that I have a nature that lowers my speed, and it'll be a huge detriment going forward in this run. I cannot stress how much problems that this single choice is going to cause here. And you can see how the first battle, it's not great. It's a bunch of growling, a bunch of pounding, about what you kind of expect, but it's not that interesting, so let's move on. Fast forwarding in Sand Gym Town, Professor Rowan lets us keep the Pokemon that we basically stole from him, and our journey is almost ready to begin. There's a lot of annoying tutorial-esque things going on, but I'm not going to harp on them or be negative. You know how modern Pokemon games are, and at this point you have to just take it or leave it. I do find it annoying that they make you go all the way back to Twin Leaf to say goodbye to your mom while they just let your rival go on ahead, but hey, after Dawn teaches us how to catch a Bidoof, it's time for our very first non-tutorial battle at a little over 20 minutes into the game. Youngster Tristan, everyone. This is where we begin. Pip is level 6, and we have water guns, so it's not a tough battle by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm glad to get to where I feel like the game actually begins. I make it to Jubilife City, get told to go to training school, and I give Barry a package from home because he doesn't love his mother. What a degenerate. It's worth going on a little tangent without being too negative to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I just want to point out that this game now explicitly tells you where to go at all times. When you press start, it will tell you on the screen exactly what you need to do, and if you look at the map, there's a literal red flag pointing you to the way. Now, who am I to say if this is bad, but as a veteran player in the series, it's sad to see so much of the game catered to either young children or brand new players. I would just simply like the options to turn things like this off, because in my opinion, it takes away the sense of discovery and exploration, which are some things that I loved and adored about the series when I was a younger player first getting into these games. I pick up the package after answering some baby questions from clowns, and I'm finally allowed to leave the city. Immediately outside of Jubilife, it's time for our first rival battle, and I'm in for a early rude awakening. I'm level 7 against 2 Pokemon. There's a Starly at level 7, and while it's beatable, I do take too much damage, and by the time I'm at the level 9 Turtwig, I just really don't stand a chance. I'm clearly not ready for this fight, and I need to already do some grinding. I can't say that I'm happy that I'm grinding for levels this early, but it is what it is. Luckily, there's a route above Jubilife that has several trainers. After taking down the Bidoofs and Magikarps of the world, after some much needed trainer battles for some experience, I fight a mini horde of Zubats to polish off getting Piplup to level 10. Then after exploring Jubilife a little bit, I find a lady that gives me a Quick Claw inside the condominiums. This held item gives you a 20% chance of going first, and since I have a poor speed nature because I'm a fool and didn't reset at the start, you'll be seeing this held item a lot in this run. Now it's time to revisit the rival fight and see how the levels help. Being level 10 means that the Starly just goes down to a couple of water guns, but we also learn Charm, and that helps on the Turtwig a lot here. It's a move that lowers the opponent's attack by 2 stages, and since Turtwig only has Tackle here, it means we'll survive much longer. That, coupled with Pounds, slowly gets me through this fight on my first attempt after leveling up. The next route is uneventful, but going through the tunnel before Orberg, a hiker gives us some TMs for Rock Smash. Notice how it says TMs as in plural, and that's a positive change. While I love that TMs aren't single use in the later games, and I think they should have just done that for this game rather than bring back the one and done style, at least they do a good job of giving you multiple of most TMs. It makes you wonder why they would even make them single use at all if they were just going to give you multiple. It's kind of an odd design choice, but it doesn't really affect me too much. It's just an observation. Once I arrive in Orberg, a kid takes me to see the gym, and from there I catch him a Chop because I think that I'll need it for Rock Smash. Now there's a wonderful change that this game makes from the originals, and that's the fact that you don't need HM Pokemon. You can just use them straight from the pocket. So what this means is that you can actually do a true solo run, and I don't realize this for quite a while, but since I'm future Matt narrating over the footage, I can go ahead and tell you this. So from here on out for the next little bit, you can ignore the extra Pokemon in my party because it takes me a second to realize I don't need them anymore. Rorik is the gym leader, and he's not at the gym. He's in the mines, and after he strongly hints at what Rock Smash does like I'm a drooling Neanderthal, he goes back. And this takes us back to the gym, and this one doesn't really have an elaborate gimmick like the other gyms. It's just a starter gym. There's 2 avoidable trainers, which I don't avoid because I want to battle them for the experience. After I beat them, it's time for our first gym battle. There's not much to go in depth about in here. Rourke is a rock type trainer, and I have a water type. There's a couple of things I'll talk about that don't have much to do with the battle itself because you know how it's going to go. The first is that in this fight I learned Peck. It's not a strong move, but it is coverage against grass types, and it's super effective against fighting types, so that's a great thing. And the second thing, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but since I got the Machop in the party, is the experience share. It's one of the hot button topics of the game, and that's because it's omnipresent from the beginning. You can't turn it off, and it gives experience to your entire party. Now for a run like this where I'm doing solo no items is something that doesn't really affect me, but to be thorough, it's worth pointing out. This means no matter if you want it or not, you'll be getting roughly 3.5 times the experience that you would normally get with a full party of 6, and I'll just let you decide if that's good or bad. My only strong opinion on it is that there should be a toggle at the very least to turn it off for both sides to be happy. Anyways, after squirting some water on these rocks, we get our first badge and we can move on. And immediately after the gym, the rival bumps into you and gives you critical information that you should head to Eterna City for the next badge. The disconnect here is that this character has been shown to be in such a hurry and so impatient the entire game, but yet he's still in town well after he's already gotten his badge for some reason. My ludonarrative dissonance alarm is just going off the charts right now. Back in Jubilife, we get our first run-in with Team Galactic, which is actually called Galaxy Gang in Japan, and everyone can agree that that sounds much cooler. Rowan tells me to teach these dudes some manners, and this results in a double battle with Dawn, but they have a level 9 Wurmple and Zubat, so it's not even worth showing at all. After that, a woman comes up and gives you access to the Ball Capsule, which lets you put stickers on Pokeballs. This gives your Pokemon little effects when you throw the Pokeball out in battle, and it's a pretty cool addition. It's not something I specifically really care about, but I do think it's pretty neat, and I think a lot of people will actually like this. After smashing a rock north of Jubilife, it's time to progress a little more, and I'm honestly shocked that they didn't have an NPC explain in detail how Rock Smash works here. There's also some little things I like about the game, and hopefully we'll see more of these as the video goes on, but I'd like to talk about the art direction. The chibi overworld style is whatever to me, but in the battles, I love some of the sprites for the trainers. An example example here is how well done and cute the Aroma Lady is. I just think they did a good job, and it kind of makes you wonder how this game could have been if they did everything in this style, but I get what they were going for with the retro Game Boy chibi style, but I love the in-battle artwork. Next up is Floramatown, and Team Galaxy is causing a ruckus here as well. Inside of a building, a little girl gives us the TM for Pluck, which is a 60 base power flying move that Piplup can learn, and it's a strict upgrade over Peck in every way other than PP. It can also take your opponent's berries and instantly use them for me. It's pretty good. And this old man just straight up gives you Jirachi, and if I understand correctly, it's because I have a Pokemon Shield save. You could also get a Mew by now if you have a Let's Go save. I have played Let's Go, but I don't have a save on what I'm currently playing on. I'm not going to comment on if giving out mythicals this early just because you've already paid Nintendo money in the past, or the issues that it might cause with balancing. I'm not going to get into that, but I get the feeling that this game doesn't have much balance in it. Up ahead, Team Galaxy is harassing a man with their Wurmples, and after we take them out, he tells us that they were after his sweet and precious honey. He gives us a jar of our own and tells us to slather it on trees to attract Pokemon. I think I'll just save mine. From there, I make my way over to the Valley Windworks. A girl that is never named asked me to save her scientist dad that is also not named or mentioned ever again. After making my way through some grunts, we make it to Commander Mars, our first of 3 galactic commanders. She says if they win, I leave. She says if I win, they leave. And I would like to alter the deal to where if I win, I get to slather that honey, but the game just doesn't give me that option for some reason. The first attempt goes south. Purugly is a very bulky Pokemon, and it just beats me down before I can do much to it. And I'd like to also quickly complain that there's no way to fast reset Nintendo Switch, and it's very annoying for the times that you fail. You have to manually close the software and reopen it up. If you wait too long, there's an autosave feature, so it doesn't even matter, but you can turn that off. I miss the instant quick reset of the handheld games a lot in this run. The next attempt goes much better. After the Zubat uses U-turn and brings up Purugly, I utilize Charm to great effect by lowering its attack by 4 stages. This lowers its damage to nearly nothing. Pluck then takes his berry, heals me for a little bit, and I'm able to stabilize and take it out, and then the Zubat that comes back in isn't anything special, and I'm able to get past the spot. I save the day, and we are moving on to our next objective. The next segment after a short route is the Turnip Forest, and here's where we meet Cheryl. She's scared, and she wants us to team up with her. She says she'll keep our Pokemon at full health, and she's not lying. The game will literally full heal your Pokemon's health and PP every single fight here, and I'm not really surprised with the other design choices we've seen thus far, but honestly, I've been finding the sheer amount of trainer battles to this point to be a little grating, so not having to potion or run back to the Poke Center is actually welcome, so I'm not going to harp on it. Here we have a double battle with 2 Psychics that both have very fast Abras that both conveniently know Energy Ball. They can take me out in a single round of combat, and there's no healing through that one. I then remember that you can in fact just talk to one trainer individually and battle them alone rather than be forced into the double battle. This allows me to tank a single Energy Ball and get past each of these fights individually, because otherwise it would have been a huge problem. It's also important to a solo run if we didn't have Cheryl to do battles like this, because it would be true to the premise of what we are trying to do solo. In Eterna City, we get our first run-in with Cynthia. She's a trainer just like us guys, and she's totally not going to bend us over later. She gives us the TMs for cut, and then she's on her way. Inside of the box shop, a kid tells us that the owner was taken to the Galactic Building and hasn't returned, and conveniently we need to use cut to get in there. Next, I meet the Underground Man, and I'm forced to use the Explorer's Kit to explore an area called the Grand Underground. At first, I was annoyed at more features being forced upon you, but I must admit, I rather like the Grand Underground, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but basically more rare Pokemon are going to appear in the rooms down here, but what I enjoyed the most was the fossil minigame. You dig for items, and here you can see I unlock a Garchomp statue to put in my underground base, and I'll touch on this more soon, but that's the extent of the Grand Underground for now. I hit up the gym next. It's the Grass Gym, and to make it to the end, you have to find 3 hidden trainers before you can progress to the leader. And as for Gardenia, we are in for a treat. Obviously, I'm a water type, and this is going to be one of the tougher challenges. She leads with Cherubi, and it's not too bad, but Pluck just can't quite one-hit it. I take a little damage, she uses a potion, and I overall progress fairly easy through her first Pokemon. Next up is Turtwig, and Pluck does some good damage. It uses Reflect, and that makes our damage significantly worse, and this means that Pluck doesn't take it out on the next turn, and then I get hit with a Razor Leaf. It takes us to the red before I take it out, and this is not looking good. Last up is Roserade. It outspeeds me, and I'm already low. It uses Petal Blizzard, and you know what happens. The second attempt, I don't even make it past the Turtwig. A massive Razor Leaf forces another reset. The third attempt, I get back to Roserade, but I'm only at 5 HP, and you know how this one's gonna go. This fight is not possible right now at level 24. So to remedy this, I go back to the Grand Underground, and of course this means I have to dig up some more statues. I really do enjoy this mini game here. And this right here is a quick look at the secret base feature. You can see some of the statues I dug up. I got Garchomp, Rhyperior, Torterra, Metacham, among others. An NPC did say I would get something if I filled it up with statues, so I'm trying to do that to see if I can get that. The thing that makes the Grand Underground preferable to grind is that the Pokemon are higher level than they are in any other area I have access to. I do believe that they are within 10 levels of you, and eventually after spending some time here, I'm able to get to level 29 before I give this gym another go. This time, Cherubi is now a one-shot, meaning that I don't take any annoying chip damage, and that's a very good sign. The Turtwig is next, and I Fat Finger and I use a Bubble Beam on accident. I get lucky and it just uses Work Up, it raises its stats, and that allows me to pluck it for lethal damage. Now it's time for the Roserade. I get paralyzed, I miss my turn due to full paralysis, I take big damage and I get off a pluck, and on my next turn I'm oh so close to finishing this off, but a Petal Blizzard puts the nail in my coffin. The next attempt, I'm able to get Turtwig low, but then it sets up Reflect, which trivializes my damage going forward. Of course, I get paralyzed again, I miss some turns, and I'm just waiting for my inevitable end at this point. I would have already reset if it wasn't such a hassle. The next attempt, I avoid Reflect on Turtwig, but my health isn't looking great, and I'm not confident. I get a quick Claw proc, get off a pluck, eat Roserade's berry, and then barely survive a Petal Blizzard. Then Arceus smiles upon us. I get a second consecutive quick call proc, and I finish this battle off with another pluck. I get the second badge I can use cut outside of battle, and this gym was absolute hell. I'm hoping that this will be the hardest challenge, but perhaps that's just wishful thinking. Now it's time for the Galactic Building, and after finding what felt like endless hordes of Zubats and Wurmples, I make my way to the second Galactic Commander, Jupiter. Once again, I try to make another wager of slathering honey, but I don't get that option. She has 2 Pokemon, and the Zubat isn't an issue, it's just gonna get blasted. The issue here is Skuntank. We trade blows, I get poisoned, and I actually win the fight, but Skuntank has the Aftermath ability, and it takes me out. And since this is a solo run, this is counted as a defeat and I have to reset. From this point on, to avoid further Aftermath shenanigans, I use my non-contact moves, but this time I actually barely take damage and do this fight very easy. That's usually how it goes, right? Once again, I save the day and I'm told to come by the cycle shop, and you know what that means. I get my sweet and free yellow bike, and now we can just zoom around. After cycling road and what felt like 20 trainer battles, I arrive in Hearthome, or is it Hearthome? Hearthome. The world may never know. I'm greeted by a Bunnyary, and my first thought is that I'm being lured into some low punny Rule 34, and I'd rather slather acidic honey in my eyes instead of that, but it's actually just a contest judge invited me to partake. I'm given an egg by a hiker, and then I'm able to actually turn down an NPC offering to take me to a key location in town, and this felt way better than it probably should have. Free will is awesome. At the contest hall, I run into the gym leader of the town, and she says that I'm not strong enough to face her and to come back later. And I'm assuming that I don't have enough badges yet, and it's a later fight. But how do I know if the game's not force-feeding it down my throat and explicitly telling me? I need the game to spell it out for me. I don't know what to do. I'm a young kid. Hearthome has several things to do in it, including making poffins. Of course, I burned them a little bit, but Piplup's stupid ass won't know the difference. He's just a penguin. Back in the contest hall, it turns out that Mom is there as well. She gives me a tuxedo for the contest, and tell me honestly, what do you think of when you see the word tuxedo? I think we probably all have the same image in our head. Anyways, after messing around in some contests, I enter the Coolness Contest because obviously Piplup is cool, and we try the Great Rank. Anyways, look at this tuxedo. Look at this ridiculous outfit I have on. I find this hilarious. The contest itself is actually a pretty fun minigame. It's a rhythm style button press, and you can choose one of your moves to do various effects. Depending on how well you do compared to the opponents, you get a score, and in this case I win. I did several of these because I find them honestly pretty fun. And I think I could have wasted a lot more time here if I was just leisurely playing on my own time and not recording, but we have to progress. We'll come back for those ribbons after we're done making the video, friends. But first, I visit the Pokemon Park, where you can take Piplup out and have him follow you around. I believe this also unlocks the ability for him to follow us from here on out outside of the park, and that's a feature that everyone in Pokemon loves. I've seen screenshots of Pokemon like Rayquaza and Gyarados being very tiny, and that looks a little weird, but it works perfectly fine for our little Pippy boy, so there's no complaints from me here. When you leave the city, you are confronted for another rival battle, and with all the extra levels from the grass gym, this one is a rout. While I'm not exactly one-hitting everything, I have minimal difficulty going through this fight, and something I noticed from this point on, ever since I took Piplup out of the ball, I'm starting to get little prompts almost every battle like, Piplup needs a pet, Piplup could use a nappy, Piplup just wants to do its best. And I think I know where this is going, but let's just wait until this develops a little bit more before we get into it. Town is between our destination, but honestly, there's not much going on here. It's just a matter of sightseeing as we pass through. And I'll be honest with you guys, at this stage, I'm getting so tired of trainer battles that on my way to Vilestone, I'm actively trying my best to avoid them. Eventually, I arrive in Vilestone, and the first thing I see is Team Galactic Grunts guarding a warehouse that belongs to them, but I'm not interested in that just yet. At the gym, I have the next run-in with Dawn, and all she says is that she's going shopping and runs off. Thanks for that engaging plot point, Dawn. So naturally, I go shopping as well, and I purchase this Pikachu hoodie style, and then I make my way to the huge Pokemart. From there, the only thing of note is that we have access to Ice Beam now, which will be a huge help later in the game. Everything else I either can't learn or have no use for. I then grab me a Sody Pop on the roof. I take a quick breather before moving on to the next gym. It's a fighting type gym. You move various planks around and make paths until you open up the middle path. It's nothing mind-shattering difficult, and eventually I do make it to the leader. In theory, Maylene shouldn't be a hard fight, but on the first attempt, I didn't heal, which means I'm low on PP. Meditite uses a light screen and then uses bulk up to raise its personal defense, which means my damage isn't great. I get it low, but it gets a hyper potion, which means that I go through a lot of my remaining power points. Then the Machoke comes in, and it just has its way with me, and that forces our first reset. I do heal up before the second attempt, but it goes exactly the same. I take some damage on the Meditite, and the fight ends with a Machoke kicking me in the face once again. I go in for the third attempt, and surprise, surprise, it's the same exact result, but at this point, I'm still thinking that maybe I can formulate some sort of plan that leads us to the fourth attempt, and here's where I abandon all hope. This time I'm trying to charm the Meditite to lower its damage, but it uses Flash, which gives me Pidgeotto Sand Attack flashbacks and lets Meditite Drain Punch me to the Shadow Realm. It's not good. From here, there's going to be a very reoccurring theme with this run. I'm going to be too slow to beat a gym leader, and I'm going to need levels and stats to help offset my awful Piplup. This means I'm going to have to utilize the Grand Underground to gain some levels. It was at this point I started to see how strong this area is. I touched on that the Pokemon here seem to be within 10 levels of you, and they are always higher level than anything above that you have access to. Is this abusing a feature? I'll let you decide that. Let me know down below if you think I'm taking advantage of the game features here. Either way, get ready to see a lot of the Grand Underground, and by a lot, I mean I'll probably just cut it out. I stay down here until level 38, and then I head back up. Back at the gym, Pluck just isn't quite a one-shot on the Meditite, and that's very annoying. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to grind. It gets off a light screen, and I make the mistake that I do all the time. I see a low health enemy, and I go for a weaker move just to finish it off, but it uses a potion, resulting in me being in a worse spot afterwards. It gets off a flash to reduce our accuracy as a way to flip us the bird before going down. Next up is Machoke, and I'm at full health this time, but my accuracy is lowered. I don't mess around. I do a full complement of 3 charms on it to lower its attack stat to Wurmple levels before going on the offense to take it out. I take some damage, but not really a whole lot. I'm at half health. This means that the Lucario comes in, and it just obliterates me. That means it's time for yet another reset, and this is just the third gym, guys. Did I mention that this run wasn't easy? I would not recommend a solo run on your first playthrough of this game, probably never with Piplup. The next attempt, Meditite gets off an annoying light screen, but it turns out that Pluck was a range and can one hit knock it out, so that's good information. Machoke comes in, and I say screw the charms. I go full full pluck mode on it. I do take some slight damage in return, but I'm in really good shape compared to other attempts when I take it out. Things could be looking good here. Lucario comes in, and I'm not sure if it's the health range here or if I triggered something in the AI, but I go for Charm, and it just goes for bulk up. This means I lower its attack 2 stages, then it ups its attack and defense by 1 stage. I'm doing this to soften up the damage, obviously, but I'm also doing it to wait out the light screen meta type put up so I can hit it with the full power of my neutral water attacks. This goes on for a ludicrous amount of time, so let's just skip ahead. Seriously, this went on for like 10 plus turns of it using bulk up. The light screen wears off eventually. I hit a bubble beam, take it to half health, and since Brian does double damage at half health, this one is a done deal. I wish I could say that the other gym leaders will not give me issues in the future, but spoiler alert, almost all of them do. That gets us our 3rd badge, and this video is well over 20 minutes. Bless your soul if you're still with me at this point. I do appreciate you, and I want you to know that. When I exit the gym, Dawn tells me she dropped her Pokédex, and Team Galactic will not give it back. After she grovels for a little bit, I head up, I help her out in a double battle with Dawn. The funny thing is that Fairy types didn't exist this gen, but she has a Clefairy, and it's updated to be Fairy type now. Galactic uses almost exclusively Poison type Pokemon from what I've seen, and it's not looking great for her pink guy. They actually almost kill it in the fight, but I'm not going to show that much of it. They actually do have a Dustox and Beautifly, which is just a disgusting mosquito in disguise, and I hate it. But that is an upgrade from the Wurmples and Zubats, but overall, Pluck makes this an easy battle, and there's no need to go too in-depth with it. I do level up in the fight, and I get to learn Drill Peck. Pluck has been solid, but Drill Peck is arguably the best non-signature flying move, and it has a respectable base power, and it will give us an even greater grass coverage going forward. After that, I obtain Fly, which will be useful for eliminating backtracking, and now is as good as a time to any to praise another quality of life change. My egg hatched, it was a happity, and it's cute, but that's all beside the point. You can now transfer Pokemon into the box from anywhere, and I do that, leaving me with our Pippy boy on our team alone like the good Lord intended. I make my way south to Pastoria, and I'm still being as careful as I possibly can to avoid as many extra trainer battles as possible. You see, I don't need trainer battles. I have the Grand Underground, and through the Grand Underground all things are possible, so jot that down. I waste no time when I arrive in Pastoria, and I head straight to the gym. It's very thematic for a water type gym, and the puzzle revolves around raising and lowering water levels, and eventually we make our way to the leader, and I kinda dig this gym. Crasher Wake is the leader, and his chibi model honestly looks very silly. I'm thinking I'm going to have an alright time with this gym, and then he starts off the battle with a Gyarados. I'm having Lance PTSD from the runs I've done in Red and Blue over the past year. Intimidate lowers my attack, and there goes my only offensive move that I planned on using in Drill Peck. Very cool. I do not have a great answer at the moment, and I take a lot of damage as I attempt to lower its attack just a little bit as I slowly whittle it down. I make it through, but it wasn't pretty, and I'm not feeling confident. Next up is Quagsire, and can I just say that I love Quagsire? It's a mud boy, meaning that its part ground typing makes our stabbed water moves do neutral damage. I'm actually able to take it out as well, and at this point I'm wondering if maybe I can get lucky and take out his last Pokemon and get out of here easy, but you know our luck, and it's not going to go that way. Floatzel is up last. I'm at a mere 7 HP. It could sneeze on me and kill me at this point, but a double damage Brian that crits was a little bit of overkill, and frankly just a little bit rude in my opinion. I faint, and that forces a reset. I decide that the answer to this gym is going to be Grass Knot that I got from Gardenia. It does damage based on the size of the opposing Pokemon, and I'm willing to give it a shot. It's only neutral on the Gyarados, but it's ×4 super effective on Quagsire and super effective on Floatzel. The next attempt I find out that Grass Knot is not enough to hit the Gyarados. I make the same misplay that I always do, and I go for a weaker move to finish it off because my brain is incapable of comprehending that NPCs aren't playing the no items rule like I am, and although the Gyarados doesn't kill me, I'm low, and I'm just going to call the reset on this one. The next attempt goes the same. I try to charm it some to see if I can be healthier, but I still get through the Gyarados at red health, and Gyarados just isn't being very cooperative today. This, of course, means that it's time for some
Grand Underground
as I return to level 44 to see how that will help me. Although Grass Knot doesn't have a base power, all my research says that it does scale with special attack in some small way. With that said, I'm hoping that it's enough to hit the Gyarados now, but I do get a crit here, so I won't even know this attempt. I don't take a ton of damage, and this attempt is looking a lot better actually. Quagsire is next, and this is one of the very few Pokemon that I'll actually outspeed in the entire run, and since it's ×4 weak to grass, it gets obliterated, and his HP bar depleted faster than anything I've ever seen in my life. Last up is Floatzel. I get a quick claw proc, and Grass Knot does huge damage on Floatzel. Floatzel must be really thick for Grass Knot to do that much. It uses a berry, which puts it out of potion range, so that's great. And of course, after all that grinding, I get a second Quick Claw proc, which basically makes all that extra Grand Underground stuff mean nothing, and I take the fight. Now I have the 4th badge in hand, and honestly this wasn't too bad, although it's getting annoying to have to grind for every gem. I'd like to blame it on the speed decreasing nature, but I just think Piplup is pretty bad. What do you guys think? After the gym, this Galactic Grunt is basically talking to himself about a bomb and literally no one cares. He runs away and you have to chase him. You catch up to him, he runs away again, and then boom, surprise rival battle out of nowhere. Please God, don't make this fight require the Grand Underground, I beg of you. He leads with Starly, and it goes without saying that Starly is not Gyarados, and a single hit takes it out. Next up is Grottle, and Drill Peck does massive damage, but it's not enough to one-hit it. It essentially wastes its turn, and I take it out with a follow-up Drill Peck. Weasel is his next Pokemon, and since Grass Knot almost one-hit the Evolve form that was higher level in the Crasher Wake fight, logic would dictate that it would be a one-hit here, and that's exactly what happens. Moving on. His last Pokemon is a Ponyta, and that's a relief. To add insult to his pathetic attempt to beat me, I get a Quick Claw proc, and I take it out really quick. It's such a relief to have these easy battles, and there's going to be a pattern that you start to notice here, is that the gym leaders are going to be hell for me to get through, but every other battle will be a breeze. I wish there was a healthy medium, but it is what it is, and I'd rather it be this way than having to grind for every major fight in the game. Eventually you chase the Grunt through a few more locations, and that leads to a fight. He has a Glameow, and I said, bitch, you look like a Glameow, and I slapped him in the face. I then run into Cynthia again, and she gives us some medicine to use on the Psyducks on Route 210, and the game just points us in that direction. So am I just not supposed to care that Team Galactic is setting up a bomb and doing general terrorist activities now? Am I supposed to just drop that entire segment of chasing down the Grunt just because I ran into Cynthia like I'm some kind of simp? Who does the game think that I am? Anyways, I gave up immediately on the Grunt and I went to the Psyduck because Cynthia is bae. She appears and gives us a charm to give to her grandmother in the next town where we're supposed to go. The next route makes me immediately regret not getting Defog. In Generation 1, I do skip Flash because I know Rock Tunnel as well as the layout of my apartment, but here I'm not so knowledgeable. I decide to press on because I'm in too deep at this point. I can't see shit here, and I'm relying on my keen instincts at this point. Eventually I make it to Celestic Town, and there's nothing going on here. I confront a Team Galactic Grunt that asks if I'm going to mess with him because he'll be forced to battle me, so we do, and it's over very quick. The Grunt runs off, I give the charm to Cynthia's grandmother, and after checking out the mural in the ruins, she gives us some TMs for Surf, which is huge for Piplup. Ride is great if the opponent is at half health, but Surf is much more reliable and usable at all times, and that's about it for Celestic. Outside of the ruins, I have our first run-in with Osiris, the Team Galactic leader. And I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've met, but he says we've met before at Mount Coronet, and it's confusing because I haven't been there either. Was I supposed to go there and I just didn't? Or is he talking about some kind of past life? Honestly, it leaves me a little bit confused, and he does mention it later, but it never really goes anywhere. Next, it's time to fly back to Veilstone because the gym is now open to us, and I'm not going to talk about the ridiculousness of this gym, but just look at this gimmick. It asks you simple math questions, like first grade level math questions. What is 3 plus 5 plus 7, guys? Answer down in the comments if you struggled with the answer. And I'm aware that this game is made for children first, but I would like to point out that it actually gives you a reason to use the calculator on your pocket, and I do think that's pretty cool, believe it or not. I'm not being sarcastic. This leads us to Fantina, and I absolutely love Fantina. Veilstone is all about style and luxury, and her entire design just drips with it. I also love the yellow cross on her dress that matches her Drifblim. Now sadly, let's talk about these battles. And yes, I said battles plural, and you know what that's gonna mean. She leads with Drifblim. Surf does respectable damage here, but it's still gonna be a 2-shot. I take a minor amount of damage, and a Quick Claw proc moves us on. Second is Gengar, and I feel like I'm in trouble. I get confused, and a Surf does some really good damage here, but it's not enough to really save us. I get hit with a Sludge Bomb for heavy damage, I get poisoned, and then eventually I hit myself in confusion, and that ends this attempt. Now for all future attempts, I will temporarily be replacing Grass Knot with Ice Beam. The reasoning here is if I can get the Drifblim down in one hit, maybe I'll be able to do better later in the fight. This attempt, we see that Ice Beam does some impressive damage, but unfortunately it doesn't one hit. It's low, it could potentially be a range, I don't know. I then make the same mistake I've made so many times already in this video by using Surf rather than another Ice Beam because I always forget that gym leaders can use potions. I get burned before I take it out. Gengar is next. It confuses me immediately and I hit a Surf. It goes for Sludge Bomb, and now it's a good time to revisit those messages from Piplup I mentioned earlier. In this instant, I survived a lethal hit because, and I quote, Pip toughed it out so you wouldn't feel sad. This is a new mechanic where max friendship with a Pokemon will let it survive lethal damage, heal status effects, land critical hits, and even avoid some hits. These are all potential lucky things that can help out in battles going forward. Anyway, it's funny here because I'm burned and I'm confused. I survived with 1 health because, I didn't want to be sad, and then I just hit myself in confusion and faint directly right after it. And even if I didn't, the burn would have taken us out, so good job, Piplup. The third attempt's going great. I managed to squeak past the Gengar and we get to see her ace, Miss Magius. Unfortunately for us, it has Magical Leaf, a super effective dagger right to Piplup's heart. I can survive 1, I get a Surf off, and that gets us to within 1 move of winning, a Quick Claw proc, and we win, but it doesn't, and that's another reset. And you know what time it is. Everyone, say it with me.
Grand Underground.
I stay here until I get up to level 48, and I'm hoping that these extra stats will allow us to progress. The pattern is just repeating itself, guys. Get ready for it. And now I can consistently make it to Miss Magius, and I do so many times. I'll play a handful of the defeats in the background, but I just can't overcome these magical leaves at the end, and I die repeatedly. I'm forced to go to the Grand Underground for an additional 2 more levels before coming back up for even more attempts. And even at level 50, I die over and over and over and over. This one is getting really frustrating, and what's so bad is that this is going even worse now that I have more levels. It defies all logic, and this fight is taking me to dark places. I really don't want to have to grind anymore, so at this point I'm just bashing my head against this wall over and over and over and over until I get it done. And finally, guys, on the 16th attempt, we have a breakthrough. So let's break it down. I don't outspeed the Drifblim because Piplup will never outspeed anything and I get burned. Ice Beam at level 50 is a consistent one-shot and that moves us on in the fight. Gengar then leads with Confuse Ray. I avoid hitting myself and I land a critical hit through the power of friendship, and I get a one-shot here, but we are not out of the woods yet. I'm still confused and I'm still burned at this point, and we're going into the Miss Magius. It goes for a magical leaf and it does heavy damage. I snap out of the confusion and I hit a Surf, and now we are both within 1 hit of being knocked out. At this point, I draw from the power from the heart of the cards and I top deck a Quick Claw proc, and the resulting Surf takes the battle. Piplup should be its new nickname. Now we have the 5th badge, and this is now the hardest fight in the game to this point by far, and it drained me quite a bit. This one took many hours to get through, so I hope you guys can appreciate me doing all this in one video. From there, it's a very short trip to Canalave from Jubilife, and there's a surprise rival battle for my old pal Barry immediately. I'll skip to the end of this first attempt because I fail. I didn't know this fight was coming up. It caught me off guard. I have to reset. I replace Charm with Grass Knot for the second attempt, and we'll pick up with that. He leads with Staravia, and an Ice Beam does the trick here with a single shot, and that moves us on. Next up is Grottle, and it's tanky, so it survives an Ice Beam despite having a double weakness to ice. What a beast. It goes for Leech Seed, which I avoid through the power of friendship, and I finish it off. Heracross also has a double weakness, and Duropeck does it in on a single hit as well. At least Piplup kind of has a diverse move pool if anything else. Barry then throws out Ponyta, and everyone knows how fire against water is going to go. It gets off a meager tail whip before accepting the inevitable. Weasel is last, and this one got a little bit worrying here. Look at this. It goes for back-to-back bites, both of which flinch me, and I'm starting to think that the AI has just went supercomputer on me, and I'm going to have to lose this fight. It does go for Brian at the end of its Street Fighter combo, and it has me in the red, but thankfully a Grass Knot can one-hit it, and this fight doesn't cause too much headaches. Now it's time for the gym, and it's steel themed. It has an elevator style puzzle, and all the trainers are mainly weak to water, which is very good for us. I battle everything before progressing to the end. That leads us to Byron, who is the first gym leader's father. He leads with a Bronzor, and while we don't have a super effective answer, Surf will do nice neutral damage. It's enough to two-shot it, but it does get off a Trick Room, and since steel types are notoriously slow, and I mean slower than Piplup, it gets off a Sandstorm before finally going down. Steelix is next, and due to Trick Room, it outspeeds us. Surf is a one-hit, or at least it would be if it didn't have Sturdy. Now Sturdy is an ability that prevents a Pokemon from getting one shot from full health, and I haven't really talked about it yet, but the Grand Underground is full of Sturdy having Geodudes and Onix, and it has been a headache for me for hours at this point, so seeing it here is very annoying. It means that it just keeps hanging on. It gets a full restore, it hangs on again, but eventually we do get past it. And what awaits us? Well, it's a Bastiodon. This wall-faced bitch has Sturdy, but more than that, it also has Thunderbolt, and that finishes us off in the first attempt. I do fail the exact same way 2 more times before getting through, and it's not worth showing them all because they're always exactly the same. Instead, let's pick up at the successful attempt. The key was being able to survive a Thunderbolt here. Turn 1, you can just use any move just to eliminate Sturdy from getting the proc. You tank the Thunderbolt, and then you finish it off with a Surf, and that's it. I obtained the 6th badge, and this was great for me because it's the first time in a long time that I didn't have to grind to get past an obstacle. And are our days of Grand Underground over? Probably not. Spoiler alert. Now the game gets a little story heavy. You meet with Rowan, Dawn, and Barry in the town library and agree to check out the lakes where the mythical lake trio are said to live, and there's a rumble. You guys remember that grunt with a bomb that everybody ignored? Well, this is what happens when you ignore terrorists. The next bits of the game involve backtracking and going to the lake fronts, so let's get through that as fast as possible so we can make this video less than an hour. At Lake Valor, we run into the 3rd commander of Team Galactic we have not seen yet. It's Saturn, and the fight itself isn't that interesting, and overall it's pretty easy. After the battle, he cryptically says he was just buying time for Mars at Lake Verity, and off we go. Once there, I battle with Mars, and it's about the same as Saturn. I have answers for all our Pokemon, and it's overall a really quick battle, not worth deep diving into. Afterwards, she spills some lore about the mythicals that they captured and talk about the Lake Trio's part in Team Galactic's plan before vanishing. Now we have to make it to the last lake by going through Mount Coronet. At this point, I waste a lot of time before I realize I don't have strength and I have to backtrack to the Lost Tower that's south of Solaceon to pick it up from the lady at the top before continuing on. With repels, Mount Coronet and the snowy routes are not too bad. I do have to battle some trainers here, but it's not too time consuming. Eventually that leads us to Snow Point and directly to our 7th gym. Obviously this is the ice type gym, and my brain had blocked out the sliding into the snowball puzzle that this gym held. What a nightmare. I eventually figure it out, and that leads us to the leader. Candace is a clever name, and I almost can't tell if I'm supposed to pronounce the ice part or just appreciate that it's there for a pun. She leads with the Snover, and that means automatic Hailstorm, but thankfully a single Drill Peck is enough to knock it out, and we outspeed it, so that's a great sign for this fight. Second is Sneasel. I get a quick call proc, and Surf does heavy neutral damage. It goes for Hone Claws, and then on the next turn it gets a full restore before I can finish it off. Luckily, through the power of friendship, Pip hits a critical hit, and that floors the Sneasel, and just like that, we're moving on. Next up is Metacham, which is honestly a little out of place for this gym, but who am I to judge? It's weak to Drill Peck due to its fighting typing, but it goes first, and a Brick Break does a lot of damage to us. Drill Peck also does a lot of damage in return, but it's not enough to one-shot it, so that means that it'll get its 2nd Brick Break off, and that ends our first attempt. Honestly, it's not too bad. We'll see how this one goes. At least that's what I thought. So right on schedule, I start having a really tough time on the spot after I start making it to the Abomasnow consistently, and to cut a really long story short, that leads to more Grand Underground shenanigans once again. Snow Point unlocks a new area of the underground, and I find some intriguing and helpful items. Chief among them is the lucky egg I found in one of the caverns. It has no combat relevance, but it will give me extra experience so I don't have to waste as much time in grinding sessions, and that's great. I found a Sky Plate. It increases flying damage by 10%, and it was something I was tossing around to see if it could help out, but nothing ever came of it. I also found Leftovers, and that's one of the better held items. It'll restore a small amount of HP every turn, and it could be useful. Either way, I'm glad I found all this stuff. Searching through my bags, I come across a Metronome that I had found a lot earlier in the playthrough, and I just wrote it off. Now, Metronome is an intriguing item. Using a move consecutively will keep increasing its power. I know in the original Gen 4, it was 10% per use, up to 100% extra damage after 10 uses, but in later gens, it's 20% increase per consecutive use, and I'm not sure what they use here, but since it's been so true to the originals, I would guess 10%. So with a new Metronome strategy in mind, and gaining about 5 levels in the Grand Underground, I returned to Candace. The plan is that, outside of the Sneasel, Drill Peck is super effective against all of her Pokemon. This means if I can make it to the Abomasnow with 4 to 5 consecutive uses of Drill Peck, it'll be doing a ton of damage, and maybe I can just get through the fight real easy. Let's see how it goes. Snover is first, and I could already one-hit it and outspeed it, so this one's over really quick. The key here is that we're starting to rack up those consecutive Drill Pecks. Next up is Sneasel. It uses Dig, so I missed my first drill peck, but everything that I've read and researched says that Metronome still starts stacking up even if you miss. Selecting the move is what counts for the stack, not if it actually hits. I take some hell damage, and the Dig, and the first drill peck I land does decent neutral damage, taking it to about 35% health. On the next turn, I'm shocked to see that I actually go first, and then I knock it out, so that's 4 drill pecks if you're keeping count. Now it's time for the Meta Cham, and let's see if the Metronome pays off. I take a Brick Break, and I'm in the red at this point, but the damage of drill peck is so massive at this point, it just one-shots it. I'm still not really feeling good about this attempt, and Abominable Snow comes in. I'm really low, and I'm interested to see what the 6th consecutive drill peck will do. It's slow, and I do outspeed it. It does a lot of damage, more than I expected, but it barely fails to knock it out, and that's unfortunate. Remember, there's pretty much a soft timer on this fight, and Hail is beating down on our little penguin boy. The damage forces Abominable Snow to use this berry, and that's key because it puts it outside of potion range for the next turn. It only uses Aurora Veil, but Drill Peck is too juiced up at this point to be stopped, and we take it out. Metronome has really impressed me here, and now that 7 badges down, and I'm aware we are slowly climbing up in the minutes of this video, so let's just keep it moving on. The next segment takes us back to Vilstone, and it's going through the Galactic HQ building. There are lots of grunts here, you know how this is gonna go, and eventually we have a run-in with Osiris, and this battle's a little bit of a pushover and not something worth going in depth in. He does give you a Master Ball afterwards for what that's worth, it'll come up a little bit later. Afterwards, he lets you release the Lake Trio, and for some reason there's a battle with Saturn that's even easier than Cyrus, seemingly just here to waste your time. I don't know why they would put this battle here, it makes no sense. Anyway, I press the button, I release the Lake Trio, and we head off. The next segment of the game is a lot longer and a lot more confusing than I remember. You need to climb up Mount Coronet to the summit. There's a lot of grunt battles and it takes a while, but through the power of video editing, we're there right now. Now for a few things that were infuriating to me and I absolutely hated. I did not remember this about this game. Right here, there are 2 grunts at the spear pillar. You can't talk to them individually, and if you try to walk past them, they give you battle dialogue and then they say, oh, you only have 1 Pokemon so you can't battle. Seriously, what the fuck is that? This means that in this game, you cannot, in fact, actually do a true solo run because you need a second Pokemon in your party just for this. So I go back, I know I could have just taken something out the box, but I forgot, I was pissed off. I catch a Bronzong, and it just sits in the battle, and we get past this one, and this just honestly pissed me off a lot, and I just can't believe that they would refuse to battle me just because I have 1 Pokemon. They're like evil, why would they not just battle me? Anyway, now after a lengthy cutscene, the 2 commanders are arguing who gets a piece of me first, and then Cockblock Berry runs up right on cue, and he turns this dream into a double battle nightmare. Now this one isn't awful, it's about on par with the difficulty of the previous Cyrus and Saturn fights, so let's skip ahead to what really grinded my gears. Afterwards, Barry does heal your Pokemon and that's great, but he just runs away. It makes 0 sense. The galaxy and life as we know it are about to end, and he just pretty much pats me on the back and he's like, you got this one, dude, I'll come back later, I gotta go somewhere, bye. The worst part about this, and what really got me heated in the worst way possible, is that there's no opportunity to save between the upcoming Cyrus fight and the previous double battle. It wouldn't be too bad if Cyrus wasn't on steroids and his team is really jacked up from when we just fought him 20 minutes ago. His team is really stacked, and I have to try this one a lot of times, which means I always have to rewatch the cutscene, then redo the double battle, then go through another cutscene, and then challenge Cyrus again. It's very rage-inducing, it's very time-consuming, and it's easily my most hated part of this game. I don't remember if the originals are like this, and it makes me want to replay them soon just to find out. I absolutely loathe this part of the game, and I can't stress that enough. It was not great. As for the battle itself, his entire team is completely upgraded, and while I do make it deeper into the fight, I fail and I just keep failing, and this means we gotta watch the cutscenes, we gotta do the double battle, then we gotta watch another cutscene, then we gotta attempt Cyrus again, then we gotta manually shut down the Switch software, then we gotta open it back up, and then we gotta repeat. I hate it. I fail a lot, then I go back, I do the usual Grand Underground grind, I attempt it even more, and I'm just gonna spare you from watching the 9 other attempts. The Honchkrow is his first Pokemon, and at the level that I was now, an Ice Beam is just gonna one-shot it, and that's what we needed, but that's not interesting. Let me quickly say that I tried a lot of things leading up to this, but the solution is often the most simple, and that was a Metronome Surf strategy. And you might be thinking that sounds strange since he has Gyarados second, but just hold up and listen. Ice Beam is the best answer I have, and you might notice that Rock Tomb is in my move pool. It's left over from previous attempts. I choose Ice Beam because I'm gaining stacks because I just used one. Intimidate also lowers your attack, so Rock Tomb is even weaker. Eventually I take that out. Now next up is Weavile, and this is where the Surf Metronome starts to come into play. Brick Break doesn't work because Weavile has the Pickpocket ability, which means that if you do a contact move, it'll take your held item and Metronome will just be done. That's why I went with Surf. It's non-contact. It uses Dig. I missed the Surf, but from that point on we're starting to ramp up the Metronome. The second one does hit, that triggers a Super Potion, and the third Surf takes it out. Last up is Crobat, and I have a thrice boosted Surf, and that's really all I need. The reason I had to grind to this level and the key to this fight is making it to this point and surviving a cross poison, and we have just enough to do that, and my next Surf is boosted enough to one hit it and move us on, and that's exactly what happens in this fight. It was very annoying, not necessarily because of the battle itself, but because of the preceding events. And finally, it's a short trip to Sunny Shore, and the gym leader here is depressed, and we have to find him to challenge him. After we tell him to go back, it's time to get that last badge. This one is electric themed, and that's not good news for our little boy Pip. There's various gears, and there's triggers on the floor to move it all around. That's the puzzle for this gym. I actually like this one a lot. And this leads us to the fight with Volkner, and shortly after this is where tragedy strikes and my save file gets corrupted, but I'll still do this one justice. I'll show you the attempts that I actually have footage for. My original idea was to learn Dig, equip Metronome, and ramp up the Dig super effective damage, since the initial turn of Dig, going underground, also counts as a separate turn, so it's pretty much a 2-for-1. But this is how it actually goes in reality. Raichu is really fast, Piplup is slow, we all know that. Raichu will always go for Volt Switch, then it swaps out to Ambipom. Volt Switch does a ton of damage, and you can tell from this fight alone that this is going to be a very tough fight. You'll get the Dig off on the Ambipom, which takes a couple of turns, but the cool thing about this Pokemon is that it knows Thunderbolt, and it's going to hurt. I do get past it, but at that point the Raichu comes back in with a Volt Switch, and although Pip hangs on with 1 HP to the power of friendship, and I get a move off on the Octillery that comes in, this one's just over. The second attempt, I get some luck, I avoid the initial Volt Switch, which means that I actually get off a Dig on the Raichu, but Volkner has thought ahead, guys. He has a Shuka Berry, which lessens the damage from a single super effective ground attack, so it just survives. Cool. It then hits me with a critical hit Volt Switch, and it just absolutely destroys me. It switches to the Ambipom. I only have 7 HP left. This one's already over. The third attempt goes exactly the same, so at this point, I gotta grind. I gotta head off to grind. And this time I actually utilized the Versus Seeker a little bit on top of the Grand Underground. Now here's where my footage of the run is ultimately going to end, but I did eventually beat Volkner, and it's already upsetting that my data got corrupted and I can't finish this run, but it's even more depressing that the recording software also messed up, so I don't even have that final 8th victory to show you guys, and I hate it. I ended up grinding to level 80. I tried several times, and the strategy that ended up working for me was a Quick Claw strategy utilizing Surf, since speed is Piplup's huge issue in this run. So I'm going to do my best to reenact the successful fight for you guys, alright? Don't be too impressed with my crazy editing skills. I get hit with a turn 1 Volt Switch, and I'm taken to half health, and then Volkner switches to Ambipom. I then use the Surf that I had queued up before the Raichu switched out, and at level 80, it's a one-hit knockout on Ambipom. Now Raichu comes back in, and finally the one thing that needed to happen in this fight happens, and I get a Quick Claw proc. I use Surf, and it's strong enough to one-hit this defensively frail mouse. Next up is Octillery, and I do have to utilize Dig here since Surf is resisted. I get another Quick Claw proc, and I get a very lucky crit 2 turns later on the Dig to take it out, and now we're up to the last Pokemon. It's Luxray. It's faster than us, everything is. It gets off a Thunder Fang, but I survive with very low HP, and the resulting Surf is enough to take this victory. This was a very lucky win, and what happened here was that I was obviously really happy to finally make it past this gym. I had to do a lot of grinding. I saved the game, and as I'm walking out of the gym, it starts to take forever to load. I don't really think much about about it. I brush my teeth, I come back, the game is just frozen, so I don't really think anything of it. The worst case scenario in my mind at this point is that I'm gonna have to redo the fight, but to my horror and shock, I reboot the game, and it took me to the select your language screen when you initially boot up the game for the first time. And I was dumbfounded here. I went through all 7 stages of grief, honestly. It was very depressing. I was about 20 hours into the game, and I was actually looking forward to the Elite Four because, believe it or not, Pip actually has a really good moveset to deal with most of them, and I know I would have gotten it done eventually. Even if I had to get to level 100 to do so, it would have gotten done. I honestly hate having to leave a video like this, but I put so much time into it. I was editing as I went, kind of. I had so much footage, I already had so much stuff recorded that I'm just gonna have to give you guys what I got, and at the end of the day, it is what it is. And honestly, this makes me kind of want to go back to do a platinum run, so maybe some positives will come out of this. Maybe the channel will grow a little bit. And guys, I would like to imagine that in another alternate reality, Pip absolutely crushed the Elite Four in one shot, and then me, Commander Jupiter, Commander Mars, and Cynthia all went away to retire on a tropical island to end our days, and that's the canon ending of this run in my mind. Once again, I'm really sorry. I absolutely hate that the save data got corrupted, but replaying this specific run is not an option. It took me way too long to get to where I was. Perhaps it was a cursed and awful run from the very start, or maybe this was Cyrus actually succeeding in ending the universe by having my save deleted. Who knows? What do you think is canon? Comment below. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me. I pushed up my other content, so next week you can actually expect a Psyduck run in red and blue, of course. I hope it's not too much of a downer on how this video ended. I hope you can move on. I hope you're not as depressed as me. But anyways, I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye!